Hört. Festivals mit Ö1. Heute die Ars Electronica 2024.
Welcome to the Ö1 Festival podcast on the Ars Electronica 2024. Under the theme Hope, Who Will Turn the Tide, the Linz Festival for Art, Technology and Society wants to put the spotlight on people whose activities give cause for optimism. The festival takes place this year from September 4th to 8th. In the run-up to the event, my colleague Hannah Balber speaks to some of the protagonists, international artists and researchers. Welcome to the third episode of this podcast. In the spotlight of every festival edition are the winners of the Prix Ars Electronica, which honours outstanding works of international media art every year. The categories change regularly. This year, for the first time, there's an award for AI in art. The winner is the US director and video artist Paul Trillo, who's known for his experimental and highly technical films. He was the first to create an official music video in the AI video generator Sora from OpenAI for the song The Hardest Part by Washed Out. The Sora AI model works with prompts, which are text inputs, and generates short films corresponding to these prompts. Hannah Balber met Paul Trillo for an interview via video call.
Paul, your latest project, The Hardest Part, receives the Golden Nika of the Prix Ars Electronica 2024 in the new category AI in Art. How do you feel about receiving that award?
I mean, I'm honored and I think it's exciting. I also hope that maybe there's a future where these things get blended together more and there's less of a definitive line between AI, video art, and just typical video art.
So before we dive a little bit deeper into this particular project, could you tell me about your journey as a director and video artist? So what initially drew you to this field?
Sure. I come, from an arts background. I originally applied to art school as a drawing and painting major and went to the California College of the Arts. And I thought I was gonna, just go and switch majors from painting to film and just make kind of dumb comedy videos. And I think being in art school, it sort of challenged me to think differently and also think differently than how I would have if I just went to a typical film school. I embraced experimentation. I embraced conceptual thinking and challenging myself to always, do something I haven't done before, and quickly started to embrace technology and cutting edge technology and seeing what kind of new visual concepts and ideas come around when new technology becomes available. That kind of experimentation and openness to try new things sort of led me to playing with AI, but seeing how AI could feed into the kind of work I was already making.
What fascinates you about it, or why did you want to dive into that technology or see AI? Do you see it as a tool or as a partner, or?
I think it's a little more than just a tool because it makes your brain kind of think in different patterns, kind of takes you down different routes you wouldn't have traveled before. And I don't really think there are tools that are akin to that same type of mental process that you go through when you're creating something. And so, it does become a little bit of a collaborator, but you also don't want to get lost in, or you don't want to lose your voice to what the AI is suggesting. And so it is a little bit of a back and forth that you have to figure out so that you still are retaining your kind of authorship of what you're making. But I'm fascinated with it. One, because it gets my brain to kind of explore things I wouldn't have explored before. And I can try things and fail a lot quicker. So that ability to try, see what doesn't work, and to iterate and to quickly generate and iterate on your idea and see how you can constantly level up and make your idea better is really what excites me about AI and this kind of thinning the barrier to entry to get to your idea quicker.
Your recent work, The Hardest Part, is the first music video generated with OpenAI's video generation tool, Sora. How did this project come about? Who came up with the idea?
Yeah, it was definitely a unique kind of confluence of, situation and technology and opportunity. Yeah, it kind of came about, pretty organically, where Washed Out Ernest, the artist, reached out to me towards the beginning of the year and, said he was a fan of my work. I was definitely a fan of Washed Out, and so really wanted to collaborate with him. So that was really exciting, but I was also extremely busy in the spring, and I was traveling. While I was traveling, Sora was announced, and kind of took me by surprise. I did not know that OpenAI was working on a video model, let alone a video model that was this powerful. And immediately I was like, all right, how do I get my hands on this? When do I get access? And they were very nice and thoughtful to think of me within that kind of early testing group. So I got in their artist kind of alpha channel that, again, is before it even goes into beta testing. They're still alpha testing it. We're still giving feedback and kind of helping shape the tool. And yeah, was just kind of blown away by the fidelity, how dynamic the model can be. And so my immediate instinct when I got my hands on Sora, I was like, all right, how fast can I make this camera move? How dynamic, how kinetic can this be? What kinds of aesthetics are there that don't look like video, and how like surreal and dreamy, and what kind of things can I create in this that I wouldn't be able to shoot with the camera? And at the same time, Ernest was like, hey, let's do a music video. And we were planning on shooting something, but I just, I simply didn't have the time. It was going to be like a travel job somewhere. Also, we didn't have very much money and would have taken a lot of post-production. The reality is I was ready to say no and turn the music video down. And then someone from OpenAI asked, as I was playing with it, they're like, hey, would you ever do like a short film or a music video with Sora? And it was the same, it was like literally the same day where they're like, hey, what's the deal with the music video? Are we going to do this? And so I hopped on the phone with Ernest and his whole management team, and I proposed this idea that I knew was going to be somewhat controversial and needed them to be on board with something that, could make certain people uncomfortable, because it means like a sort of paradigm shift in terms of like how we approach music videos in the future. And he said, if we can make something that still feels emotionally resonant and still feels tangible to some degree, then he was on board. But there was definitely a little bit of hesitation there, but ultimately he embraced it and he was really excited with, the possibilities of this.
The song The Hardest Part by Washed Out is about moving on from a lost love. Paul Trillo's music video spans several decades, starting in the early 80s, and traces the relationship of a couple who meet in middle school. The 4-minute video appears as an infinite zoom through time. The surreal blends of environments and impossible transitions, from cars to buildings and landscapes, create a fluid drift through dream worlds and the subconscious. The idea of an endless zoom through countless locations and time periods of a love affair came to Paul Trillo about 10 years ago. This project would not have been feasible with the budget of an average music video, he says. But with artificial intelligence, or more precisely the text-to-video model Sora, the project could be realized. The use of AI also fitted in perfectly with the theme of the music video.
It's a subject matter that lends itself to AI because AI is based on memories. It's based on amalgamating memories, and memories are not the truth, and neither are the outputs from AI are not truthful. They're just an approximation, and our memory plays a trick on us, and we sort of forget certain details, but then we highlight and emphasize other details, and things can feel more dramatic, or things can be kind of spotlit, when we think back on something. and the edges of reality kind of fade away and kind of get blurry. And so I thought like playing with a concept that explored personal memory as well as like using the machine to kind of simulate memory was kind of a fascinating idea.
Can you walk me through the process of creating this? So the way it works is you type something, right? So you give the AI a prompt, a text, and the AI creates something out of the text. Now, I'm assuming you didn't just write, make me a music video of two people falling in love. It should be like 4 minutes long and it should feel like going through a tunnel, and then pop, there it was. I'm assuming that was not the case.
Exactly what I did. Yeah, it was that easy. Yeah. There are a lot of people that probably assume that that's what was done, is that you just say, hey, make me a music video, and it makes you something. And I'm sure there will be a future where that can happen. But I don't think that's very interesting because you're relinquishing a lot of choices to be made by the machine. So I kind of knew that in the back of my head, people were going to question this, how it was made, how easy it was to make. And so I wanted to put as much time into it as possible. So I spent about 5 or 6 weeks working on it. I generated about 700 clips, which amounted to like over 320 something minutes of video, which was then cut down into 4 minutes. And each video is made from a series of prompts. It's about this sort of alchemy of words to get exactly what you want. And I kind of figured out that chemistry equation to get this camera move, and then also another kind of series of words to create the aesthetic, which was a little bit of this like kind of 80s 16 millimeter type of look. And then, figured out the actions, the characters, the setting, and what happens over time. And so the prompts end up being, I don't know, almost like a page length long of like a script page.
But in the prompts, you would describe like everything, every little detail that's up there then.
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it definitely adds details, but like the location, even down to like the floor is a checkered, blue and white checkered colored floor. They're wearing denim jackets, but it's lit overhead, kind of moody overhead lighting, and then the character design, all those things are prompted for, but you can say car and you can say like 80s Cadillac car or whatever. You can kind of describe those things, but then it changes the look of that car every time. And so there's some things that you're not really prompting for. And sometimes, you kind of, I throw a bunch of words at it. I see what happens and try to be surprised by it. I think that's also like, again, going back to it being a little bit collaborative, is you try to like stump it. You try to like give it a ton of words that if you said that to a person, they would just be confused. But the AI, maybe it gets confused, but it never says no. So you can test its limits, or you can see how it kind of jumbles things and then get inspiration from that kind of lost in translation.
So what is the most fun part about it? Or how is it compared to shooting or making a traditional video? So what can you do or experience or be creative in a different way with an AI-generated music video compared to a traditional video?
Yeah, just having these crazy ideas and not kind of editing yourself. I think, when you're in production and you're like, oh, what if we did this? Then there's always a producer that's kind of like, sighing, and they're like, well, we're just not going to be able to do that for the budget. And so that's really liberating. But there's definitely a difference in the attachment or the authorship of it, where you don't feel as maybe emotionally connected to the clips. Like if I was on set working with the actors and how hard it was to get the shot or to make your day. So you kind of start to conflate and attach emotion to the day that you're shooting. And that can be good or bad. Sometimes it makes you want to keep a shot in your edit that maybe doesn't belong there because you know how hard it was or how expensive it was to get that shot. But there's a lot of satisfaction when you are on set and you're trying to go for something difficult, or you're going for something with a little bit of spontaneity to it, and then the actor surprises you and there's a little bit of magic and the whole crew feels that like you got something really interesting and it works on camera, that team effort definitely cannot be created in AI, and which is why I'm still invested in shooting things traditionally as well. We shouldn't let it be sort of mutually exclusive from AI. I think there's a world where these two things can supplement each other.
As with any work of art, once you put it out, you're kind of putting yourself out there also to people who love it, people who hate it or criticize it. Especially because this was such a new project, there has been much attention to it. There has also been some backlash online, like people have described it as, like, quote, the best case for blatant artlessness, or really creepy and dystopian, or others raised concerns about actors or other artists losing their jobs because of AI. And there has also been criticism about how these models were built on, quote, stolen data. What is your response to all these critiques?
I'd say, if you're using these tools to do something that you could have done otherwise, I do think that is lazy. The fact of the matter is, this was a pretty low budget music video that I didn't really have much time to actually go out and physically shoot. And so it would have been something that just wouldn't have existed otherwise. So I think there's merit in that. And I think specifically what I'm interested in is looking for what the AI does that is different than other kinds of tools, which is its ability to kind of hallucinate, its ability to kind of smash and blend ideas together. Disparate concepts can be kind of combined into one. So I think some people will understand the craft. I think other people are saying it's lazy because really what they're scared of is that this thing is so good. I think that the reason why there's a strong reaction is the better the AI gets, the more scared people are, whether that is for video, for image, for text, for music. The stronger these models get, the more confusing it becomes to distinguish what makes us unique as people. And that's unsettling for a lot of people, including myself. I watch this stuff and I'm like, man, that is too good sometimes. In terms of the ethics, I wish there were more transparency in how these models were created, and it would create a healthier conversation, and it would create a better path forward to figure out how do we use this as a filmmaking tool. Yeah, I think that to me, the future is having a little bit more ownership of your own models and your own material, and that you would be able to go and shoot stuff and then supplement and augment what you're shooting and train on your own material. But right now, all these things function as black boxes that can't kind of be penetrated, and even the people making them don't really know what's happening inside. So that's not great, and I hope there's a future where there's more transparency and more control and malleability of those models. So yeah.
One last thing, the theme of this year's Ars Electronica Festival is Hope, who will turn the tides. I was wondering, speaking of hope, what brings you hope in these days?
That's a tough question. I mean, I do have hope for, this younger generation of filmmakers that are going to have access to these tools that will allow them to tell stories that we've never seen before, and their brains are going to be fundamentally different because they will be a generation that has only known AI. And, there's good things and bad things about that, but there is a sort of limitlessness to their imagination. And I'm really excited for this younger generation of filmmakers. And I'm also hopeful that filmmaking as a whole and independent filmmaking will strive for bigger, bolder, and stranger ideas, and that we can bring some more weirdness and riskier ideas to filmmaking that we would have probably ignored otherwise.
That was Paul Trillo in the Ars Festival Guide to Ars Electronica 2024. Thank you very much for listening. In the next episode, Hannah Balber talks to another winner of this year's Prix Ars Electronica about the lies and concealment tactics of the oil industry in the context of climate change. This is the subject of British artist and activist B.T. Wolf's project Smoke and Mirrors, which wins the award in the New Animation Art category.